So quick presentation. I'll present you to the team. Anyone who doesn't know Bill yet, Bill served as the former CRO of Pendo and managing director of Marketo, where he played a pivotal role in scaling the revenue teams. Today, Bill is helping Battery Ventures portfolio companies accelerate through their growth stages, mentoring CROs and sales leaders. Your mic is working? It does.
I believe so.
There you go. So, Bill, it was about a year ago, courtesy of Adi here. We had the pleasure of talking with you, and we came on the Zoom call. The first question I asked you is, so Bill, what would be your guidance to your CROs in your portfolio companies for 2024 back then? And you said everything should be anchored around customer value. Now, that was a pivotal moment for us. And I'm quoting you since then, almost in every first sales call. My question to you on that would be, why this customer value focus is so essential, not just for customer success, but for the entire revenue team?
Did anybody here today, I know we're only on the first floor, but did anybody take the elevator up? Did anybody ride it? All right, I had a bag, so because I'm going to the airport, so I did take the elevator. And when the elevator shut, it said, "Are you practicing your elevator pitch?" And I thought that was so applicable to what you just asked. So as Guy said, I'm an operator. I work for a venture capital firm, and I know you know a lot of people that have gone from operating into venture, and now they write checks. That's not what I do. I guide, I help advise, I help counsel the battery companies that we've invested in on how they think about growth. So I've stayed pure to my 29 years of operating, or 116 quarters, as I say it. So back to your value point and back to the elevator pitch comment. As a CRO, I started my career as an SDR, went to be a sales manager, and as anybody knows, as you go higher in an organization, you move farther away from the core part of what you did initially as probably an individual contributor. And I always had a love for selling, and I found that I was kind of a sucker for when sales reps or customer success reps would come ask me to get involved in a deal that I would want to say yes, but that was no longer my role. And I had to teach them how to be really good at it. And value became the conduit for how I did that. And so I had to devise a scheme or a rule, and I called it the 30-second rule, where to get me involved in a deal as a CRO, I would ask you this question. Can you tell me the business problem or use case we're solving? Which of our products solves it? And can you articulate the value? And when I say articulate the value, that means quantify it in a dollar, a currency-based output in 30 seconds or less. Go. And if you couldn't do that, then you're not ready to bring me in to the call. Because as a CRO, my name is not Harry Potter, all right? I don't weave spells and go magically close deals. I have to go in there and be armed to be able to go talk to probably the economic buyer in my role. And if you've never heard this concept called above the line and below the line selling, it's a really interesting concept. You have to do both in sales and in customer successing your customers. Above the line selling is where you're talking about outputs to executives and economic buyers. And below the line selling is where you're probably talking about features and usage to the actual end users. And it's really critical to do both in a sales cycle. When you go in there and you're talking about closing a deal or expanding a deal or renewing a deal, you have to hit both of those levers. But like I said, I think you have to zero it in on the 30-second rule, which is you have to tell me the use case we're solving, which of our products meets that use case, and articulate the value in 30 seconds or less. And that is anchoring on value.
Love it. Love it. So how can CS leaders, we have a room filled with CS leaders here, almost all of Israel's CS leaders that are in country currently are here in this room. So thank you for coming once again. How can CS leaders practically build value-driven teams, when that truly understands and communicate the value of their service to the customer? maybe you can give some practical examples.
Yeah, I'm going to try and keep up with Sharon. I thought her presentation, I don't say this lightly, I thought that was outstanding. I strive to always get in front of a group and be actionable or practical. So I'm gonna try and keep up. She should have maybe been sitting here as the closer. That was really good. And one of my suggestions to answer your question is along the lines of what she presented. So first things first, I think in the CS world, one of my key partners is product. The product team. Everybody here familiar with Dreamforce, Salesforce's annual conference? Whether you've been to it or not, everybody kind of knows what it is because it's such a big conference. One thing that they did that was that is so exceptional is every year you go to Dreamforce and you know they're going to release a new cloud. And it doesn't matter whether it's something they built or something that they acquired, but there's going to be the data cloud, the AI, this year is Agentforce, right? There's always a new cloud. And literally 5 minutes after Mark Benioff is off the stage, the sales reps are like running around Moscone Center with order forms, asking their sales reps to buy the new cloud. So seeing that we're here at Google for Startups, all of you may not have big enough customers, have enough customers to have an annual summit like them. But I think one thing that I think great CS leaders do with their product counterparts is they visualize as though we do. They have a mock user summit every year. We just pick a date, September 15th or April 15th or something like that. That is our user summit. And what you do is you use that to reverse engineer as a customer success leader to say, what are you going to stand on stage and announce is our new direction for our customers? And let me get really actionable. What are you going to give me that has a dollar sign associated with it? Not a feature. A feature is just an incremental addition to the product. You've got to give me something every year that has a dollar sign, meaning a new SKU, a new product that I can go and sell. So number one, Guy, I think that is a key partnership for creating value inside of customers. I think the product person and the CS person have to be really closely aligned on their on a cadence. Like sales, customer success, we all work off of monthly or quarterly goals, but we all know at the end of the year, whenever your fiscal year end is, that's kind of our birthday, if you will, inside of the company. Well, what's product's birthday? What's engineering's birthday? Well, unless you give them one, they're not going to give them one themselves, right? Because no one ever really asked to be on a quota.
Very interesting. It connects to the nice slide that Tamara, I believe, showed of marrying the adoption and the values. So at the data level, I think that's the marriage between kind of the revenue teams and product teams. So it makes a lot of sense.
Another one I think is I'm a really firm believer. There's one opinion. I'm not saying I'm right. I'm just saying that my experience, this is what it's led me to believe, is the crisper the definitions of your roles, the better that business. So Battery has about 125 software companies in our portfolio, and I don't work with all of them, but I see across all of them. I see the results. And one thing that's interesting that stood out to me in my last 4 years of being here is the ones that have really well-defined AE roles, AM roles, CS roles, whatever your titles are on that whole journey of from new to renewal to expansion, the crisper those definitions, the better those companies perform. And we're all human beings. I can tell you why crispness goes away is because we're sentimental. Is Billy, our new business sales rep, comes in, joins the company, and he spends 9 months selling to a D at Hi Bob, and he lands the deal. And then he's like, oh, shoot, you're going to take this away from me and give it to someone over in customer success? And we go, yeah, that doesn't feel great. And we get soft. Bad move. Our role as all of Israel's CS leaders in this room, so you're leaders. Your role as a leader is to lead what's best outcome for the company, not for Billy. And I love Billy. I love working with my teams. Don't get me wrong. But my mission is to do what's right for the company. And the best thing I can do, like, let me give you an example. Anybody work in a company that has segments like small, mid-market, enterprise? Yeah, I see a lot of heads nodding, some hands up. The reason you do that is because there is a different buyer and a different journey for enterprise than there is for your small business. The same analogy holds for new business versus expansion and renewals. It's a different motion. You can have the same rep, you could have the same profile of person that does that, and that's the other piece of this, is you know, as customer success leaders, a lot of times you have your, I'll use US dollars here, but you have your 300K a year AE, and then you have your like 150K a year CS. I think it's a bad move. I think it's a bad move. I think the model is going to where you have AEs that are focused on getting the logo, getting the first deal done, which means they need to know how to manage procurement, InfoSec, legal, all of that process. And then you have expanders who, it's a different skill set, but they're equivalent. So they're equivalently paid. What's different is their quotas. The quota for the AE is much lower than the person that does expansion renewal. And by the way, I'm a big believer that I think renewal and expansion go together. I think that those two people should have a similar profile to the seller, and I think those two people should do the same thing. So again, crispness of definition of those roles.
So it's interesting. It leads to the. So I want to connect to what Sharon presented, and I believe you mentioned as well in our discussion before this meeting here about new roles in the organization encode around value. And you've mentioned the concept of go-to-market engineer. And maybe you can explain how this new role can unify CS, marketing, sales.
Yeah, so everybody saw that presentation, and she had that same exact title. So I was like, wow, this is just easing us right into this conversation. That is a fairly new role that I'm starting to see come up, and it's really bringing an engineering perspective to the entire journey. So this is marketing, sales, and CS. So it's across the whole buyer's journey. And if you think about that, we've had RevOps, and RevOps is trying to stitch together a bunch of different tools that hopefully communicate and work together through that flow. But I don't think it's been really done from that engineering type of perspective. So I thought, like, I see a lot of definitions of it. I thought Sharon's was pretty good. I think that that is going to be a new role. Meanwhile, I think she put something up there about the F word, that 4-letter word, fear. Fear. Remember, she said the thing about, is it going to take our jobs? I think that was a really interesting call. So to get actionable with you, I do a lot of interviewing, and it doesn't matter if it's a marketer, a salesperson, or someone more on the post-sales side. If it's a leader, I always ask a question along these lines. Tell me how you're using bottoms up or just off the shelf AI to impact the function of your business right now. And it's kind of like the 30-second thing again. Like, I don't look at my watch, but I'm kind of looking. And I sometimes see the people's eyes go up and to the left, and then sometimes I see people zero in. Like if Sharon was on an interview, she would nail. She'd be like, well, let me pull up a couple things and give you a visual. And she'd crush it, and she'd probably get the job. I'll tell you today, though, if I'm interviewing somebody and their eyes go up and to the left and I can see them looking for the answer, they're probably not going to get the job. And so I thought her call to action for this room was really outstanding, is lose the F word, lose the fear. And if you're not doing some of the things she said, do it. I did it myself about 4 weeks ago. I consider myself a rookie. I went in and I realized I was advising all these companies and listening to what they were doing. And then they turned the question around and asked me, like, well, what do you, like, they'd be like, well, what else are you seeing? So I could communicate what other companies were doing, but I wasn't doing it myself. And so I was like, okay. And I bit the bullet, and I went on YouTube and watched a bunch of videos on how people were using, like Gemini, how they were training the model for themselves. So I thought her example was really great. Adi and I were talking about this the other day, that I think that a lot of companies, especially smaller companies that maybe can't afford an off-the-shelf package software, are going to do things like go grab Gemini, and they're going to train up by role. It doesn't matter if you're an SDR, an AE, a CSM. You're going to go train it up with a lot of the things that she had there, which is like, it could be our product positioning. It could be our customer case studies. It could be Jira tickets. It could be a million different things, so that her example of the Monday.com example is totally real time. And you could look like using the podcast style one's good, but like me personally, like I just want to get the data and be able to consume it. But I loved her example that I'm driving to work. But anyways, I think people are going to load up these by role type of trained bots, and then when I hire you guy to be in that role, I'm going to say, now come on in and load up you to train it on your voice and do the other side of that.
So I saw the Binch bot, right?
Right.
It was amazing. You want to share maybe with the team what that Binch bot is capable of doing?
Yeah, so I think there's three stages. There's first training your bot. The second stage is developing your prompt game, and that's where I'm at right now. And I think the next stage is going to be where I integrate my bot to. That's what I think the process is going to be. But what happened was I was fortunate to have a friend who showed me his bot, and he had built multiple bots, one for building presentations, one for building proposals to his customers. And I was like, oh, show me that. And so he walked me through it. So that's when I went to that's where I went to YouTube and just started watching videos on how people did it. So navigation wasn't totally intuitive, and I went in there and I uploaded my LinkedIn. I have a podcast series, so I put all the transcripts in there. I write a lot of content, blogs and whatnot. I put that in there. I follow the Medic sales methodology for value, so I loaded that in there. And then when I'm going to go on a customer call or one of our portfolio calls, and they ask me a question, what's the value of the AE versus the AM model? Something like that. Tell me where I should segment my sales team, something like that. I'll punch it in there and it goes, and I can see my voice in the answer. So I'm at the early stages of where I've trained it, and now I'm really trying to practice my prompt game. So I'm paying a lot of attention to like a lot of things on LinkedIn. You're seeing people start to write out really impressive prompts. So she had the call to action. I'll reinforce her call to action. If you're not doing it, go do it. Just take the time. It did take a fair amount of time, my first couple like weeks of being in it. I hit a lot of brick walls and I had to kind of learn, but now I'm doing it. And now I'm going and talking to people. It's funny because, like I said, I was interviewing people and asking them. Yet if someone had asked me the same question, I totally would have failed. So that was the Binch bot.
So I saw your Binch bot, and I wanted to have one of my own. So I went on and created the guy agent or agent guy. And up to now, I can record to myself thoughts that I have while driving and sending over to me over email. So, and I definitely can relate to that recommendation to play with AI, get used to it, remove the fear. Definitely the right way to adopt AI.
Her recommendation, I think it was the sixth one on her last slide, or before the QR code, where it was run the hackathon. That's a genius idea because we all know, like again, if we're all leaders in this role, it probably means we have a few years underneath us. We know that youth is king, and we know that a lot of the young folks that are working for us are probably way ahead. And so that's where you're going to see the best practices. That's where you're going to learn incredible things. And so running a hackathon and saying, how can you help impact our function of what we do, CS, the CS function? How can you help impact that using AI? Because again, like Google for startups, right? Like this isn't, not every company's HiBob. I met with HiBob, Adi and HiBob on Monday, and they have a couple of AI stars in their organization. And I told them at the end of the meeting, I said, I work with a lot of companies, and if you have a spectrum of like beginner to advanced, they were on the far side of advanced of what they were doing, and it was awesome. But they're also bigger than the average bear, right? So for a startup, you're probably not going to have as many resources, and that's fine because there is still knowledge out there that you can apply.
Absolutely makes a lot of sense. Time is flying by, and we promised the audience here to relate to the survey here, so I want to bring that up quickly. That's us. There you go. So on this one here, I believe the question is very much around the second point about, or the is it the third one, the expansion and upsell. So the expansion and upsell. So obviously one of the top challenges. What actionable advice maybe would you give the CS leaders to boost upsell success?
The first thing is we're probably all in the middle of our fiscal year. I would encourage at the appropriate time to look at the org structure and the definitions back to the roles. And this is tough. I literally wish I could write the one-size-fits-all book on the perfect sales and customer model, but it just doesn't exist because it's different if you're small, if you sell to velocity versus enterprise, if you're young or you're more mature, who your executives are, like what the history of the company. There's so much that factors in that I wish I could build that framework, but I can't. But I'd start there. I'd start at looking at my model and say, are we optimizing this company? And it's hard work. I'm not saying this is easy, but you've got to get that Billy factor out of it. Of are we doing what's right for the company, or are we doing what's right for the individuals? And I'd really focus on what we're doing right for the individuals. Number two, I think I said this a little earlier, but I'll re-emphasize it. I think the team that owns the renewal owns the entire post-customer piece. I think we're seeing a lot of things change right now under the world of AI. I think one thing that is definitely changing is you had an AE who closed the deal, you had AM who expanded the deal, but then also we had the CS person in here who was responsible for health and maybe the renewal. And it was like, and this is for a $20,000 a year account. Like, why would you have all of those people touching that? I mean, two people. Person that finds the deal, and then they move out gracefully. They pass the baton, and there's a person that goes over there. So this is back to the definitions. I would optimize for that model.
That maybe leads to another question that goes between the lines in the different sessions that we're having. How do you see the future of customer success? So how should CS leaders here in the room be focused on, or what they should be focused on to stay?
It depends on the definition. I mean, customer success can include some really wide things like documentation, and documentation's changing. I think you're not going to have documentation writers. You're going to have documentation editors in the future, because you can do a tremendous amount right now just with what you already have built, popping it into AI and it coming up with some pretty on-point answers. So it's an editor. If it has technical support underneath it, ticket deflection. There's the business staircase that was founded here that's now part of Gainsight. A huge impact on ticket deflection. That's very clear. It's taking people out of the process of people solving their problems, which I'm personally a big fan of. I'm sure you are. If you've ever been on a bad phone tree and you're just trying to talk to somebody to solve your problem, as opposed to, so getting that right, I think, is going to reshape the customer success role. I think the ramp time of new hires of customer success is going to dramatically reduce. We've been working on this for years. So I'll give you an example. I graduated college in 1993, and I went to work for Oracle Corporation, and I was given three things. I had a screen that had a proprietary CRM, I had a telephone, and I had a $1 million quota. That was 1993. And today, that kid coming out of university is probably given a dumpster fire of productivity tools, more communication methods of Slack, of WhatsApp, of phones, and they're probably given a $700,000 quota. So where's the productivity in that? Where's the productivity in that? So I think this is going to be my this is going to be my controversial statement. I am not fearful about the people element inside of this, because Sharon talked about it. People are fearful of their jobs. The people that are fearful of their jobs are probably the ones not experimenting with this and not leaning in, and those people should be fearful. They should be fearful. The people that are leaning in are going to figure out really creative ways, because the reality is I meet with a lot as part of the process of how we invest. I'll meet with the companies during due diligence, and there's some people that come in and propose a value proposition of, we're going to make you more productive, we're going to drive your revenues up, we're going to save you costs, we're going to save you time. And then there's the people that are a little more edgy that come in and say, hey, you have how many SDRs, how many CSMs? We're going to cut that by a third. And that's an edgy value prop to come in. But I got to tell you, that's an above the line message. Like, if I'm CRO and I have 30 CSMs and you come and say, well, how much does those cost you a year? $150,000 each. So you spend almost $5 million a year on CSMs, and I can cut that by $1.5 million. You're going to have my attention. If you come in and say, you're going to spend $60,000 with me, and I'm going to reduce your CS team by a third, that's going to get my attention. That might not feel good to everybody in the room, but it's coming. It's coming. It's not because I said it. I'm just observing it. It's coming. And so if you don't lean into it, then I think you will fall behind.
And if that message would be, okay, with my technology, you'll increase the productivity of your CSM or sales team by this and that, would that make sense?
So for below the line, yeah, if I'm going to go talk to the team, I'm not going to say like, yeah, I'm going to take you out of your role, right? Because I'm probably not going to win that deal. But I think we've all been overwhelmed with the productivity gain. And like back to my example of when I graduated to today, we have all these tools, and I don't see the productivity being that much. I do think AI is going to take any role in the go-to-market function and reduce the time to be able to get that person trained up because of Sharon's example of that could have been a rep that just was struggling and didn't know the new product. It could be a brand new rep that just doesn't know the storyline. And she goes and does what Sharon used the example as and gets herself sounding knowledgeable, sounding credible. So that's one element. But then secondly, there is the element of how many people do I need then to be able to do that across my organization. So the productivity story, yes, it's still going to stay there. But have you ever been on the receiving end of this kind of pitch, which is like, hey, spend $50,000 with me and I'm going to save you $6 million or something like that? Like I look at that and I go, okay, there's three problems with, there are three potential problems. One, your top line number is just way out of whack. And they always come back and say, yeah, but we used your data and used our model. Okay, well then your model is wrong. Because realistically, if you're asking me to spend $50,000 and I get $6 million of savings, you should be asking for $1 million from me. But then someone goes, well, wait a second, my competitors only asked for 50,000, so I'm down here. Something's wrong in that value exchange, and so I don't believe it. The productivity thing is what I'm getting at. What I do believe is people, because that's real. If someone came and said, like, look, within 6 months you're going to have a smaller team, and meanwhile they're going to be more productive, and meanwhile they're probably going to be doing higher value activities. Now, like I said about sentimentality earlier, like I'm also a human being. If someone came in and said, look, I think we could redeploy those people, I'd probably listen to that story and say, like, could we have people do better things that create better value for my customer? Yeah, I'm all ears.
Amazing. Yeah, I know I can go on. I can go on for hours. This is amazing discussion, Bill. Thank you so much. We'll open up for questions from the audience. Maybe one or two questions from the audience. I know we took a few more minutes from your precious time. So if anyone, go ahead.
So the question was, do I see tools inside of our portfolio that are really changing the way people work? Sort of. I'll give you the answer this way. April 30th was just a couple weeks ago. A lot of companies end their quarter right then. Right after that quarter was over, I went across some of our portfolio and asked a couple questions. A, how did you perform under all of this uncertainty of economy and tariffs and stuff like that? And B, what tools are you using? And so I can give you the answer of what I heard in that. The most common tools that, and this was for go-to-market teams specific, there's like Cursor and a lot of those tools being used, co-pilots over in the development side. But for go-to-market, the two most common I heard were HubSpot and Gong as kind of the staples that were in there. The ones that were coming up that I heard were Momentum.io in the marketing space, Clay in the marketing lead gen space. There's a company called Unify GTM out there, which is in the intent space. Trying to think what else I heard. Firecrawl, which is in the, like we all used to do SEO, and we all know what that is performing like now. This is how do you get your brand in the LLM, like the AI search that you just did. How do you get your name in that one? Yeah. Yeah, GEO. So I heard those multiple times across that. So are they having impact? I didn't quite get that far to say like, hey, pencils down. Are you seeing them really deliver? But I heard those ones multiple times just in the last couple of weeks.
Last one from the audience. Hilik.
I want to go back to the point of moving between sales to CS, and you mentioned, basically really followed. So I'm with you that there should be sales, and then CS, and each needs to have distinct role and accountability. How do you see? And my take on that, my take on that is that basically the hardest thing is to build a relationship, right? And this is why essentially it's obviously it's incentive, money incentive, which is always sales, but also the relationship, move the relationship. So at the end of the day, how do you see in general moving relationship between sales to CS? And how do you see maybe AI impact that? Because that's kind of the
Yeah.
challenge. But this is why we are still here, right?
The question was, how do you see the transition from sales over to CS? And just real quick back to his question, I didn't close this off. Did you notice the examples I just gave were mostly ahead, upstream from CS? They're mostly marketing stuff. So I think that's where the initial like landing place is. But then like I do hear a lot about ticket deflection. I just haven't heard multiple. Like your question was about what package software. I haven't heard the same one over and over again. I heard Staircase a few times, but it's in marketing. Now back to his question about the transition. This is a great question. So I had an old mentor of mine who used a term that I've never forgotten. He said, "Bill, accidents happen in the intersections, right? Accidents happen where people cross, where cars cross." And that's what his question was about, which is how do you successfully do the transition from new business to upselling, cross-selling to renewals, that whole food chain of stuff. And it comes back to the point of the comment that you love, which is anchor everything around value. I'll tell you the world that I visualize with AI. I visualize that, well, first of all, I'll say this. Any customer-facing person inside your organization probably spends about 20% of their time in front of the actual buyer. That's it. 20, maybe 30 if you're on the high side. The rest of it is doing prep work, doing training, meetings with my boss, whatever it is that takes up our time. I think that the future of that is that we're going to get to 40, 50%, that we're going to increase over the next couple of years. And that transition, the thing that I visualize is this, that I don't think is done well today, is sales starts selling. They start finding use cases and problems that they can solve, and they persuade the customer to buy, and then they chuck it over the wall. I foresee a future where, with AI, a bunch of things are going to happen. I, as a seller, am going to be in that role, but when I hang up the call, the call is going to be transcribed and put into my CRM. It's kind of already happening. But next actions are not happening very much yet, and I think the next actions are key to this transition. It's going to build my forecast for me. It's going to build my quote. It's going to build a business case that from that moment on can exist through the organization. Because right now, I just see a lot of sales organizations go off in their world and build their value case or whatever you want to call it. And I'm not sure that value case gets sent over the wall to the CS side of the house, and that the company has agreed that this is our methodology. Like most companies sell to 3, 4, or 5 use cases. Like that's 80% of the playing field for them. Anchoring on those key use cases, building your business case. Business case is something with dollars to me, the quantifiable impact, and then having that exist across the organization so that anytime, doesn't matter the role, the AE, the AM, the CS rep, the technical support rep opens up their window that they live in, they can see what they're working towards. So I think that there's a ribbon or a window or something that's going to show across the entire life cycle of a buyer that will help with that transition.
That's amazing. I think that's an appropriate way to close the session. Thank you so much, Bill, for being with us here today.